These are the 7 worst things to do when moving to Venice, Florida.
We're going to talk about things before the move and after the move.
And we're getting started right now.
If you're looking to buy or sell a home in the area, make sure to call, text, or email us. I am a local realtor here. My information will be in the description box below.
That phone number is 941-221-1897. You can call or text at any time. We're always going to have your best interest and happiness in mind when moving to the area.
The first one is not visiting the area first. A lot of people make up their minds that they want to move to a new area through our videos, through other YouTube videos, just because of what they see on the screen, and they're so sure that they want to move to the area, and we always try to portray what's happening, but a lot of times in the screen it can look a little bit different.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people tell us that they like that we're honest, we're pretty upfront, but there's always going to be like little things that when you come to the city you're like, okay, maybe I didn't realize how bad that was going to be, or just wasn't the way I pictured, or whatever that may look like. But we've had like people come in, like they already sold their home, and they're like, we're ready to move here, and then after they've been here a couple days, they decide they don't want to move here because maybe the traffic is too slow or too fast. We've heard it both ways. Maybe it's just the city feels too small, or they can't afford what they thought they could afford. Whatever the case may be, but coming to visit here is just going to get rid of a lot of those issues outside of your typical research. But even that, like watching our videos, researching online crime, schools, all that stuff, no matter what city you're looking at, that's just not going to be quite enough to make sure that, okay, yeah, Venice is the city for me. You got to come here in person.
Yes, because online, through all your research, it might check all the boxes, and not just Venice, anywhere really that you're moving to. It might check all your boxes, but you go there and you're ready to move to that city, and it's not what you thought it would be.
Yeah, and I think one thing to consider with that too is generally on our videos, we show a lot of our favorite spots, which is going to be the downtown, the jetty, the Casperson Beach, Sharky's, things like that, the pier. You're not going to be spending all your time there necessarily, so you want to get a sense for what some of these other areas are. Now granted, we try to show in videos too, like neighborhoods and things like that, but again, it's just different being there in person and be able to turn your head 360 degrees, see everything around, get a feel for the people that are in the area, get a feel for traffic, whatever that may be. There's so many things, the weather, there's a lot of X factors, and we always recommend come in the winter and come in the summer. Both, not just one.
Another mistake to avoid when moving to Venice is not having a rental lined up.
Or a home that you bought.
Yes. We have seen this firsthand where people maybe found a job here or got a transfer from their job from a different state to here, and now they're staying in a hotel looking for a rental, actively looking for a rental, and they can't find a rental. And that's a big issue, and mainly to give you a little perspective too, it's during the winter here we have an influx of people from the northern part of the country, and we have a lot of retirees, a lot of snowbirds. So most snowbirds will have the rental, will be under contract with the rental 2 years, a year ahead of time. So if you're moving here and you're trying to find a rental for that year, that might not happen.
It's slim pickings and competition is fierce, and there's very little out there. You got to get ahead of the curve on that for sure. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Either have a house that you bought, again, visit before you buy that house probably, or have a rental lined up. I think a rental is a little bit less of a commitment though. You can maybe get away with doing that maybe without moving or without visiting the area first. But yeah, if you're gonna try to get a rental, better do that sooner than later.
Ahead of time.
Another one of the worst things you can do when trying to move to Venice, Florida is, okay, you visited, you decide you want to move here, and then maybe you decide you want to buy a house here, but then you don't get pre-approved. Tell us why that's such a problem.
Yes, that's a huge problem, and we've actually experienced this with someone in the past. They moved here, found a job, moved to Venice. They were stuck in a hotel room a few weeks before they contacted us, and they were not pre-approved yet. The first step when you talk to me, and if you've talked to me in the past, you know that that's like the first thing I tell you, like you need to get pre-approved, because you need to know what you can afford or what you feel comfortable with, because maybe you can afford a lot more, but you don't feel comfortable making those payments, or you don't want to make those payments. So that's the first thing you want to do, get pre-approved, because if you can't get pre-approved, then what are you going to do? Are you going to stay here? Are you going to rent? Are you going to maybe move back home? Having a pre-approval on hand gives you an idea of what you want to do and if you can afford to live here.
Yeah, it could, I mean, first of all, she won't even take you to look at places if you're not pre-approved, just because you could be looking at places that are way out of your budget. Or maybe your budget is a little higher than you thought it could be, you know? So without that, you're going to make it much more difficult to try to get the right place, to even know what you can afford. And yeah, it could be a big time waste for you. And on top of that, yeah, maybe you just couldn't even afford to live here, period. It would be better to know that before you decided that you were going to come down and live in a hotel or whatever that looks like. So definitely get that pre-approval done.
Another mistake is to compare the prices, the home prices here in Venice, to where you're from, and also compare, not only comparing prices, but the size of the property or how the property looks. That's a big, big mistake. Mainly because if you're coming from, say, California, that's not an issue, right? Because you're getting much more house here for your money. But if you're coming from like the Midwest, a lot of homes there are still very affordable, and you come here and it's like sticker shock because maybe you can't afford, or you think it's just like, that's way too much. I could be getting like almost like a mansion back home.
Yeah, and I think a big issue with that comparison, so like Cali to Florida, I think is a little more apples to apples, and you're probably going to get more for your money here. Yes. But if you're talking about, let's say, like New York even, like, again, that's not an apples to apples comparison. Price-wise, you're going to do better here than there, but it's not apples to apples. It's a completely different lifestyle, and especially with the Midwest. I mean, with like New York, you got, okay, the big city, there's, you know, the value is there. You know, you've got so much at your fingertips. One of the most populous cities in the United States. You know, there's news and media and yada, 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 all the allure of New York City. But when you're comparing like the Midwest, and then you talk about comparing that to Florida, especially Venice, you're talking about being in a beach town with low crime, good schools, you know, beautiful downtown, good weather, year-round, you know, everything. I mean, we've got a video, in fact, we'll link it in the description, about why we feel like Venice, Florida real estate is an amazing value, but it's going to be more than if you're living in a small town in Wisconsin, like where we came from. That's just the nature of the beast, because you're not just buying a house, you're buying, as she always says, location.
Yes, definitely. And you can't compare, like if we were to compare Wisconsin, our little hometown where we're from, to Venice, it's like, holy cow, like I could get like a really nice home back in Wisconsin, but do you want to go back to the winter and the snow and everything that comes with it?
That's like comparing apples to mangoes, or pineapples, or name your tropical fruit, because that's what we do down here.
Oranges.
Another one of the worst things you can do when moving to Venice, Florida, is not having your work options figured out. We're going to get to ones that are for after you move in a second, because we did promise at the beginning of the video. They're coming, trust us. But before you move, get your work figured out, because if you don't have your work figured out, you might have a hard time getting a mortgage or a rental. You know, they're going to want proof of employment. Now, if you maybe have remote work, or you have your own business that you can bring down here, that might change things a little bit. But for the general person or retiree, you don't got to worry about work at all. Hey, that's great. Do that. Move here ASAP. Perfect spot for that. But if you do need to work, get that figured out.
Yes, and lenders will actually, they won't approve you if you don't have a job, whether that's a job offer or a remote job or anything that can prove that you can actually make those payments. Having that figured out would be like the first thing to do, and then looking into, you know, the whole pre-approval process. And
also, I think knowing what you're going to be doing for work is going to help a lot with, okay, knowing where you should live. Should I be nearby? Also, what can you afford? Because maybe the job will pay less, maybe it'll pay more. It really depends. So those are a lot of factors, you know, that are going to be determined by your income and the location of that work, and maybe if you're willing to commute or not, or what the kind of work is. Maybe you can't find a job that you would like down here. You know, those are all factors that really need to be considered.
Another mistake is not taking advantage of all the things that you moved here for. Not enjoying going to the beach or the downtown, or maybe even just being outside. Your lanai, for example, a lot of times we do get into this and we're trying to be better about it, but a lot of times we are just like so busy, or, you know, focus on what we're doing, that we forget that we have a lanai, that we can just maybe even work from the lanai.
Working on the lanai is the best.
It is. Especially during winter.
Only thing better than working from the lanai is working in the downtown or on the beach.
Yes. So, you know, doing things, but maybe if you can't work from home, you know, you go to work, whatever the case may be, go to work, come back home, go to the beach for a sunset, or go to the downtown for a walk, or you can always do things after work. Even if you have a 9 to 5, you can always do things after work, and that's what you moved here for, right? Like, you didn't move here to continue to work, you moved here to experience the breezy life. Style.
Real breezy. And yeah, one other thing too, like just even like breaking up certain, like, okay, for one thing, when we came to Florida, we're like, we're gonna take walks every day, or just about every day.
Which that we do, because we do have a dog, and she gets her walks.
She gets antsy after she eats her second breakfast, not dinner. It's called breakfast. Then she expects her walk. But one thing we'll do to break that up even and take advantage of the city that we know and we love is we'll decide to go to a different park. We'll go to Pine Brook, Lemon Bay Park in Shamrock Park. We'll take her to the downtown. Sometimes we'll take her to the dog beach, little things like that. As you can notice, most of our fun activities revolve around Jazz, our dog, but we try to get to the beach too. We try to get to Sharky's on the pier occasionally. We get to the downtown almost all the time, probably at least 2-3 times a week, 4 times a week, maybe even. The jetty, if we're in the downtown, it's just like a ritual at this point. We always drive to the jetty. So we always make sure we take a little time out, like, oh, since we're here, or we'll go do this. Or maybe it just looks like, okay, I'm sick of doing the walk around the block in our community. Well, let's go somewhere cool.
Yes, and that's a way of keeping us active and our dog active, and also at the same time just, experiencing what we moved here for.
Another one of the worst things you can do is to just get locked in on Venice, and this is all I'm going to do is stay in Venice. No. Venice is amazing, Venice is great, but there's a lot more to explore, both for work opportunities and entertainment opportunities at your fingertips and very close by. When we're talking Sarasota, Fort Myers Beach, hopefully that'll be back up and running soon. Really stinks to see what happened there. And even the Orlando area, it's only about a 2.5-hour drive. So if you have kids, or if you're a Disney fanatic, you can take a drive. We know people that will drive there and back. I wouldn't advise to do that. I would rather stay a night or two, which is usually what we do when we take road trips. We'll stay at 2 nights, and then you come back home and you're like recharged, almost like you took an actual vacation. Yeah, it's like a getaway.
Yes.
And it's a much different vibe in Orlando. The weather's a little different, believe it or not. Yes. And you go to like Universal City Walk or something like that, or one of the theme parks. It's like a very big city feel and experience that you're just not going to get here. You've also got at your fingertips Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater. Those areas are amazing, especially near the beach. Clearwater Beach is great.
Miami, it's a 3.5-hour drive.
Yeah.
Naples is about a 2.5-hour drive.
Florida Keys, we got a video. We'll link that in the description of us taking our second adventure down there. So yeah, I mean, there's so much other stuff that you're really close to in Florida because of the location of Venice, because you're just south of, well, it's going to be the opposite, south of Orlando, and then, down here you got your Miami, even further down you got your Keys. So it puts you in a nice location where you're kind of able to get to all those without having to be like right next to one and really far from all the others.
If you're ready to make the move and start experiencing all these things, make sure to call, text, or email us. I am a local realtor here. My information will be in the description box below.
941-221-1897. You can call or text that number at any time. We'll always have your best interest and happiness in mind when buying or selling a home in the area. And if you want to know more about life in Venice, Florida, check out this playlist right here. We got a bunch of videos for you there. Hit all the buttons down below. Leave a comment. Let us know your questions and or thoughts. And
live breezy.